Hi, and welcome to this episode of the Pulse Podcast. I'm your host, Ed Akers. Today, I'm joined by City Clerk Extraordinaire Kim Hudson. Much like a quarterback or stage director, Kim plans, prepares, and executes city council meetings to ensure they run smoothly. We're going to start this podcast the same way I start every podcast, with roll call. Kim Hudson?
Here.
Jim Pruitt? Here. And Ed Akers is here. All right.
We have a quorum.
There we go. Let's go. I'm going to show you a clip here, and I want to talk about this.
Okay.
So, are you ready?
Yeah.
So This is Kim Hudson live in action at a city council meeting.
Bill 13966, an ordinance amending Chapter 400 zoning code of the ordinances, Article 7, PD Plan Development Districts, and specifically Sections 400.830 and 800.850 to the extent they pertain to the PD-RF Plan Development Riverfront Districts. The sponsor is Michael Galba.
Okay. So I want to talk about that because to me, it sounds like, are you a football fan by chance at all?
Yeah, I watch football.
So it sounds like Peyton Manning is getting in the huddle and calling out like X split.
Yeah.
On green, blue 32.
Well, fortunately, first of all, I don't have to write that legislation.
Okay.
That is written with our legal team and with the departments. So, but for me to sit there and read that, a lot of it, first of all, I have to stay very focused because it's easy, as you saw me catch my breath there in a minute. I can get tongue-tied because it's a lot of acronyms, but I just try to go slow and stay focused. And I always kind of think of putting together a council meeting is almost like a little theater production because you want to make sure all the players know exactly what's going on, when they can expect things to happen. There's a lot of background work that goes on to get to that point. And the president of the council, he runs the meeting, he or she will run the meeting, but I'm just kind of there to make sure everything goes smoothly.
Okay. Let's talk about Robert's Rules of Order. A lot of meetings are run to this standard. So it's kind of
absolutely.
the standard of how you run a meeting.
Yes.
And there are so many rules.
Yeah.
But you do follow that.
Yeah, you have to. It's parliamentary procedures. It helps guide how you run a meeting so that it's orderly, professional, everybody gets a fair turn to speak. Here at City Hall, in our meetings and in some of our boards and commissions, of course, we're at a very high level of Robert's rules. You know, we take a roll call, we make motions, and we have seconds, and we have discussions, and then I do roll call votes. And so, yeah, it's definitely necessary to run an orderly meeting.
Are there certain things that you just know, like that are ingrained, like we have, like what you just said, we have to do a roll call order first?
Yes.
Okay.
You know, if ever in doubt, do a roll call vote because there are some things that maybe you just need a voice vote. All those in favor, say aye, against, nay. But some things have to have a roll call vote.
As far as like passing something, is it unanimous? Does it have to be a certain percentage?
Yes, 6 out of 10. So It's a majority.
Majority.
Yes.
So just one over more than half.
Exactly.
Okay. Now, if someone like withholds their vote, or is that the right term? They choose not to vote or they abstain from voting.
Sure.
Now, how does that factor into that formula?
So an abstain vote is considered a no vote.
It's considered a vote against.
Against, yes.
Okay. So
I'm sorry. Yeah.
That's okay. So
and
that
if you're
counts
absent, same thing.
Okay. If you're absent, that's an automatic no vote.
Exactly.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
If somebody wants to watch the council meetings,
sure.
How do they do that?
Go to our website at stcharles. Actually even watch the current meetings going on at that time, and you can go back and watch previous meetings as well.
And along with the website, they're also on the app, which is STC Now. You can get that on the Google Play Store, Apple App Store, available anywhere.
Yeah, it's a great option as well.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of The Pulse. Be sure to subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. New episodes come out on the second and fourth Tuesday of each month. Want more content from the city? Be sure to follow and subscribe to our social media channels. That way, you'll be the first to know when we drop new episodes, exclusive interviews, and exciting local stories.
The city clerk, a lot of people may not know this, it's an appointed position by the city council members. The city employs a staff to assist me in my job. So my department consists of myself, an assistant, and 2 deputy clerks.
Okay, interesting. So the city council are your like direct supervisor?
They are my direct bosses, correct.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And how do they go about sourcing that person?
Well, interestingly enough, historically, it's always been the person that's worked in that department has moved up. There's always been a succession plan in the city clerk's office for maybe 20, 30 years, even more maybe.
Okay.
I had the pleasure of working underneath the previous city clerk for many years. She had the pleasure of working underneath the city clerk that she worked underneath for many years. And I've got a great staff, and I think our succession plan is set. You're keeping some of that institutional knowledge in that department, and I feel like that's really important.
That's good. So how long have you been in this role?
I was hired back in 2009 as an administrative assistant in the community development department. So I started down there, and an opportunity opened in the clerk's office, and I saw that as an opportunity to learn more, to move up. And I put in for it, and I was hired as the assistant city clerk. And I worked there for 12 years before I was appointed to be the city clerk. So
wow, okay.
Yes, coming up on a couple years now.
What's your background before that?
Administrative.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know if there was like a career track for city clerks or if it was...
Well, there can be. Of course, a lot of city clerks, I feel like you just get your experience by just doing the job.
Yeah.
But of course, you can like get a degree in public administration, political science. There is a career path if you choose to go that way, sure.
Okay. There's also records management that's involved in your role.
That's very big.
And we have a lot of records because we have a lot of meetings and bills and laws that pass. Is that what consists of the records?
Well, there's a lot more records than that. Every department in City Hall has their own records, their own type of records. A fire investigation report to a report from animal control to community development. They get a lot of requests for building plans and plats, and police, of course, they have their own whole thing that they do over there, completely separate. We have a retention schedule that we must follow. So every piece of paper that is handled or managed throughout the city government has a life cycle. And so what we have done is we have kind of incorporated a lot more activities this Records Management Month to kind of bring it to light, to remind folks in their departments that we're here to assist you and help you with that. The records that I keep in my office would be all the legislation, the resolutions, meeting minutes. We have meeting minutes all the way back to 1849.
Wow.
I have records in my office that go back the old quill pen where somebody was handwriting minutes. They're a gem to us. I mean, I personally love the history of St. Charles, and to pull out one of those books, I just light up when I see that. What's kind of interesting to me or kind of cool is like when I look and I'm thinking somebody, because there's always been a city clerk. I mean, it's every city, every village, every town has a city clerk. And so I look back and I'm like, some city clerk a long, hundreds of years ago, a couple hundred years ago, was writing minutes, the same thing I'm doing now electronically. And so like for me, I think, wow, what I'm putting down in these meeting minutes, somebody 100 years from now could be reading what I wrote.
Oh, yeah. That's kind of neat.
So St. Charles is rich in history, and I'm amazed by it. Your meeting minutes are permanent records for all of history.
Yeah.
So we'll never get rid of those.
Talk about the Sunshine Law. Is that where we get to go to Florida once a year?
That'd be
What do we
great,
get to go outside? What's that?
Actually, the Sunshine Law was kind of termed that because they want everyone to know that government lets the sun shine in. And that's kind of how I was always taught that phrase kind of came about. But basically what the Sunshine Law is, we are a local government. And when we talked about records management, and every piece of paper, every file, every document has a lifespan. Some things are permanent, some things are open records, some things are closed records. But the citizens have a right to make requests for records if they've got questions or they just want to know something. Transparency is a really big thing, as I'm sure you know, in local government. So we're here to do that. So, yeah.
And how does someone request that? How do they get
Just
access?
go to our website, stcharlescitymo.gov.
Recently, we had Bring Your Kids to Work Day, and you did a great job, and you kind of got to conduct or run like a mock city council meeting.
I started thinking about ways that I could incorporate a little bit at a very high level that they would get a kick out of, sitting at the dais, hitting the gavel, putting stickers and approving things. They had a little legislation to pass and to consider. It was the super kindness rule.
Yeah, that's right.
What I was most impressed by is that some of the kids, they really got into it. And they really said, well, what about this? They had discussion. And that is what happens in the real council meeting. There are discussions. And what I was trying to tell them is that you might not always see eye to eye with the person sitting next to you, and that we can share different ideas and have different opinions, but still come together as one. To do what's best for the city.
I loved it. And they asked some great questions.
They really did.
I was telling Jim, one of the first questions in our group was, I think you brought up like giving a high five every day or something. And someone was like, well, what if someone's differently abled and they can't do that? And it's like, oh, that's the first thing they thought of. Like, what great hope for our future, right? To be thinking about other people and how this affects
Yes.
other people and what they can and can't do. And
Yes.
yeah, it's really cool.
And I hope that Mayor Dan gets a chance. He's got some future
Yes.
Mayor Youth Advisory Task Force members.
Have you had any other kind of memorable moments that you got to be a part of?
Something that was probably most memorable for me, just since I've been the city clerk, was the Frenchtown Special Business District and putting that together. That is something that hasn't been done since the mid-70s, early
Yeah.
to mid-70s. So no clerk that I know that I've worked with ever had an opportunity to do that. And so it was definitely a learning process, but everybody here at City Hall, it was new for everyone. There was legislation that had to be passed. There was an election that had to be held. And my office and with legal department and with administration and staff, we all worked together to put that. And one of the one things that I really liked about that process is that I got to go to a Frenchtown meeting and
Okay.
just be there for the residents to ask if they had questions. Myself and my assistant, Emily, went and with Councilmember Otto, and I liked being out in the community and being able to assist and
Yeah.
answer questions.
That's really cool. So the first one was obviously the Main Street
Yes,
Special Business District,
yeah.
and that was in the 70s?
Yes, I
Okay.
believe it was 1974.
Okay. So
Yeah.
creating a special business district, just as an overview, is creating this extra revenue stream in this designated
Yes.
area, has to be voted on by the citizens,
Mhm.
and then has to have, like, is it a board?
They do have a board, yes.
Okay,
So
so-
once it's all established and everything passes, then they develop their own board.
So when that passed, now we've got some funding. Now we've got C3 is going to,
Yeah.
expand through Frenchtown. I'm like, can happen.
Yeah.
It is happening. Thank you so much for coming on. I think we all learned a ton of information about clerks and what you do, and I really enjoyed it.
Thank you. I've enjoyed being here with you today.
Can I get a motion to adjourn the podcast?
I make a motion to adjourn the podcast. Can I get a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.
Thanks, Kim.
Thank you.